All right. I'm going to go ahead and start today, just in the interest of time, being very respectful of everyone's time today. I'd like to welcome you to the Water Energy Education Alliance Leadership Roundtable number 6. Welcome to all of those who have participated in the roundtables 1 through 5, anywhere in between. And also, please help me welcome the new folks to our Leadership Roundtable number 6. We're excited to report that we have 60 folks who have registered for this event. 41 of those are independent individual organizations, so we're very excited to have such a large representation. About half of our people today are return participants, and the other half are brand new. So please help me welcome our new folks. I do want to take a moment to recognize our 2021 WEEA sponsors: the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Molten Miguel Water District, the Water Replenishment District of Southern California, and the California Environmental Education Foundation. So welcome everybody to our Leadership Roundtable number 6. My name is Tiffany Baca. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Municipal Water District of Orange County. I also lead now the Water, Energy, and Education Alliance. Many folks who are joining us today know me in a lot of different roles, and this is the role that I'm presenting in today. So I'm happy to be here and very excited and motivated. So I want to start with the land acknowledgement. Knowledge is a stepping stone towards equity and inclusion, and it's a very small thing that we can do, especially given the industries that we're in, which is natural resources, water, and energy. So in the spirit of truth and recognition, we acknowledge we're gathered today on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples and nations throughout California, who for thousands of years have protected, cared for, and thrived on this land. Native American tribes, such as those of Orange County, the Ketch, Achiman, Payomcham, and Tongva, had a close relationship with our natural resources, settling near lakes and rivers and working with seasonal cycles to meet their water needs. We honor and respect those who came before us and will continue to be good stewards of our land and our natural resources. If you know the original nation of whose territory you live, learn, or work on, please put that in the chat. If you don't, we encourage you to visit native-land.ca to learn more about the people who took such good care of the resources that we now are taking care of today. Our agenda today is pretty full. It's a 3-hour meeting. We are sadly not meeting in person. That was a big part of coming together, but we hope that we're going to do a really good job virtually, and that includes staying on track and staying on time. So we are going to put the agenda in the chat box. So if you'd like to follow along in what's coming up next, please go ahead and click on that link and follow along on our agenda. We do have a fantastic speaker today that has been highly recommended since I became interested in this alliance. And in between that, we have survey results to share with you, a history of WEEA, leadership updates, and then this afternoon we're going to do breakouts. So if you'd like to follow along the agenda, please do so. Some simple housekeeping stuff. We've all been in Zoom meetings, I think, long enough now. I feel like I live on Zoom these days, from, sometimes even skidding in one meeting and out of another. So just some simple things to remember in the Zoom application, especially since we have so many new folks. If you could change your name to make sure that the name that you're representing is correct and your organization. And you simply do that by going to your picture and clicking either the 3 dots or the more button, and then you can rename your name there. We ask that everyone remain muted unless you're presenting or asking a question. So if you haven't muted yourself, that's typically in the bottom left-hand corner. For some of those joining us today, it might be in the top left-hand corner, but you just simply press the mute button. Right next to that button is the video button. Obviously, when we share our video and we share who we are, we do develop a closer relationship. We're able to read body language and that sort of thing. If you're not comfortable doing that, we completely understand that. It just does provide for a better experience. So if you're inclined to do so, please share your video as well. We're reserving the chat for comments. So while we can't meet in person today, we still encourage you to interact with each other. And if throughout the presentation you have something that you'd like to add or a comment that you'd like to make, then please use the chat for that. And you're going to raise your hand via the Zoom application if you'd like to ask a question. And you can find that option when you click on the participants tab on the bottom of your screen, and then it should be on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, comment for chats, or chat for comments. Our icebreaker today is really interesting, and I had some time to think about this, and this was actually an icebreaker that we used for one of our public affairs staff meetings. One of our public affairs group came up with this, and I thought it was really appropriate for this group. Keeping in mind that really what we're competing against are dreams, right? So everyone who have joined us today, at some point you decided what you wanted to be, and maybe you knew at a very young age, and maybe you didn't, but we're going to try a word cloud here, and I've participated in a lot of meetings where sometimes word cloud works, sometimes it doesn't. We don't want to stress anybody out with the technology used, but if you could take a moment and with your phone, type in the number 22333 in the chat. That's the number that you'll be texting. I'm going to go ahead and do it myself. And text the word MWDOC 183, press enter, and then answer the question, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Word cloud doesn't recognize two words. So if you can, if your answer is two words, if you can hyphenate that or squish it together so we can see your responses in the word cloud, that would be great. And we're going to give you a few minutes to answer that question, just remembering as a child what you wanted to be when you grew up. And if you have trouble with that, please let us know in the chat. We do have some folks helping us out today. A good portion of my team are helping us out today with the technology of Zoom. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Walter. And if like Walter, you are having some trouble with that, feel free to type your answer in the chat, as long as we're sharing and we can get a good idea about who we have joining us today and what their dreams were. All right. So the reason I wanted to share this with you, yes, so that we could better understand each other, so we could better understand who was in the room and where we came from. I also want you to consider that the students that we're trying to reach, again, we're competing against dreams. And in some instances, we work with kids who have very clear understanding of who and what they can be. Their dreams are very big. I know we have a lot of doctors joining us and in this leadership roundtable meeting, lawyers, all of the big stuff. You have to have a pretty big, good self-confidence to dream that big. But there are a lot of kids that maybe don't have the same size of dreams. And we want to consider that when we think about who we're trying to engage in our world of energy and water industry careers. So there are some out there, I'll share this personal bit with you. I wanted to be a mailman when I grew up because I knew that the mailman always had a job, had a reliable transportation, had clothes on his back every day, showed up every day. So that seemed to me like the perfect job. And if you would have told the young me who wanted to be a mailman that I'd be talking to you today in this forum, I would be really surprised at that. So So as we move through the dreams and the goals that we hope to have for this alliance, let's also consider who we're trying to inspire. So thank you for participating in that icebreaker. I'm going to briefly go through our survey results. As I had mentioned, we have 41 organizations represented in this meeting today. Unfortunately, only 9 of both industry folks and educators participated in the survey. There could be a variety of reasons for that. I know that if I were asked to take this survey, I would absolutely need to go to my human resources department to help me with that. Some of these answers I just wouldn't know. So what we're going to do is leave this survey open so that educators and industry professionals can take their time, answer the questions, engage your human resources department. And I also want to invite you to share these surveys with colleagues of yours who will help us get a better representation of Southern California's needs for CTE and interest in CTE. This is really important so that we have a very clear understanding of where both sides are coming from. We can build together a common language and meet in the middle, so we're operating from a place where action can be taken without confusion. So we're going to go ahead and leave those surveys open. Our next Leadership Roundtable meeting will be in January, so you have plenty of time to complete the survey and plenty of time to engage others in this conversation. I'm going to go quickly through these survey results. Everyone's going to get a copy of all of the presentations today, and that includes the survey results, which will help you, again, talk to your human resources department and also talk to your leadership as you develop plans for your CTEs and what you want to see happen from a result of participating in this alliance. So educators survey results, 9 organizations, all over 200 employees. Wide range area of expertise. So we have water utility science, work-based learning, CTE education, STEM, internships, a lot of different regions of expertise. Asking in your service area, indicating which CTE partners would have a significant impact helping prepare students for future success. Again, we have a lot of different answers here. All of these answers that were provided also got some response, but water and energy industry partners, shout out to you guys. We're the #1 potential CTE partner that will help impact the direction for future success of CTEs and where the students want to go. Trade and professional groups, high up there, high school districts, businesses, CTE advisory board, and community college. Those are all the top answers. Asking whether students we work with have participated in any of the following. Several of us do some of these things. Several of us have never considered this. So I want you, if you're an industry professional, to really absorb these answers and think about where you want to take your next action. So internships, we're pretty good at that. Apprenticeships, career fairs, guest lectures, these are all the ways that students are gaining access to us. If there are other ways that we want to expose students to the work that we do and actively engage them in what we're trying to accomplish, we need to make sure that we're participating in these things and start thinking of some new ways that we can really inspire students to take a look at our industry for careers. Do we think CTE courses sufficiently prepare students for an entry-level job or career? Most of us said yes, some of us said no. And why I think this is important for those of us who have CTE courses, we might have some more work to do. And we might want to take a look at the courses that we provide now, especially during this time. The pandemic has changed everything for everyone. And so we want to pay attention to what we're offering and constantly evaluate and amend the way that we're doing things. Concerns with regard to CTE programs. The biggest concern is job placement after graduation. And I know that industry struggles with this. We do know that we have a high number of retirees coming up, but committing to job placement is very difficult for us. So for everyone really consider that. Funding is always going to be an answer on both sides. And finding a qualified credentialed CTE teacher, that's also another big one. And we've heard that over and over again. Do schools or local districts have successful partnerships? We're doing a good job at that. Do we offer any of the following? Again, site visits, tours, we're really good at. Internships, some of us offer scholarships, and some of us collaborate with other education partners. So please consider that. Do we have successful existing partnerships with other educational institutions? Majority, yes. And do they include any of the following? Dual enrollment, allowing community college credit and high school credit seems to be a big one, and clear transition opportunities to further education and training. So things that we're doing a great job at, but there's always room for improvement, right? Where are the significant challenges in implementing CTE programs? Funding, again, is right there at the top. Equipment, student interest and motivation, which is why our icebreaker question is so important. Having the space to do it, the room for classes, there's a lot of different factors here. We're going to switch now to the industry survey results. Again, we have 9 organizations represented and a range of organization size. So not all of us are over 200 employees. We do have a percentage less than 20 to 50. We represent a big range of size. So what percentage of our current employees are eligible to retire in the next 10 years? And if you look at the pie chart here, it is more than 50%. So more than 50% of water and energy industry professionals are eligible to retire in the next 10 years. And I would invite you to consider that due to the pandemic, there are a lot of folks that are retiring early. So while this may look like this today, give us another 6 months, that number might be higher. Where do we anticipate workforce needs? The largest number here is engineering and planning, also environmental science and administration. And based on your agency's top 3 needs for new hires in the next 5 years, what certifications and job experience will be required for eligibility to apply? The majority here, and I've read through these responses, certificates, degrees, experience. I mean, that's really what you need to know. And when we conclude and you get the answers to these surveys, again, take a look and see more of the specifics, but that's really what we're looking at. The most difficult to fill are engineering and planning jobs. And do we offer hands-on training to high school or community college students? A majority of us do offer internships and some temporary work opportunities, but as you can see, and through the years, as we've had these discussions, this has come up over and over again, but we need to find some common ground and we need to find a place where we're speaking the same language. Why volunteer opportunities are so important, or CTEs or job shadowing, some of these other opportunities, and I think we're going to get there. Do we offer resources for high school teachers? We do a great job at tours and field trips, lesson plans and activities, but we can do more. Do we offer opportunities for high school counselors? The majority of us don't. And at some point, I'd like Bill Andrews to also talk to us a little bit about why that's so important and who we're engaging. Do we have CTE curriculum? The majority of us do not. And that's one of the reasons that you're here today, right? A good portion of us do. And there are another smaller percentage who are working to build CTE curriculum. Would we be open to providing on-the-job learning opportunities? That's a maybe, and I think it speaks back to what I had originally talked about with industry, fear and the uncertainty of committing to something specific. So I think through our work together, we're going to find ways that becomes more comfortable and makes more sense, not so unknown and so scary, but that's where we're at today. Are we interested in collaborating with others to create strong water or energy career pathways? 100% of industry said yes. So all of these unknowns or uncertainties or things that may not seem like super positive news, we're willing, we're here, we're interested in collaborating. We just need to get some common ground. Would we be interested in joining CT advisory groups in our region? And an overwhelmingly amount of us said yes. So with that, we'll go ahead and open up the questions. So if you have a question for me and anything that I've talked about up to this point, feel free to raise your hand and I'm happy to answer any questions. And so far it looks like we have none. So I must have done my job. That's how I'm going to look at that. Okay, and so what we'd like to do then is introduce Bill Andrews, founder and ex officio advisor for the California Environmental Education Foundation, or CEF. You see their logo there in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, Bill founded the Water Energy Education Alliance, WEEA, which is where you're at today, and has done a phenomenal job building the foundation that we need to continue the momentum. So, Bill, if you'd like to go ahead and share with others the history.
So, hi, thank you so much, Tiffany. I will see if I can get my PowerPoint queued up here. So like you said, I just hit the share screen at the bottom.
Yep.
Okay. And then it says the little cue there, it says it will stop others share screening. Do you want to continue? So should I hit continue on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I just don't want to butt you out.
Please do.
Okay.
I've been talking long enough.
All right. There we go. So yeah, my background is in education. So I just wanted to let people know that. I started as a high school science teacher way back when, in the mid-70s. And so I've been in education for around 45 years and taught for 11 years, all the way from 6th grade through college, and then went to the State Department of Education and went from being a science and environmental education consultant and focused eventually on environmental ed and took over the environmental education grant program in 1991. So that brings us to my first slide here about how the foundation, of which we're working from now, took its roots from an organization that was started also in the 1970s, and this is based on input from Walter Zeisel there at LADWP. And so that group was called the California Energy Education Forum. So these folks got together and talked about what their education needs were amongst energy agencies. And I started interacting with them in the 1990s. And so around 2002, when they were ready to sort of move on, I said, hold the show, let's see if we can shift your focus from energy education to something much broader, environmental literacy and stewardship for the whole state. And thankfully, Walter said yes. He applied to the environmental education grant program that I was administering. And that money, by the way, comes from environmental license plates. So those of you that have personalized license plates on your cars, you contributed to that program. So anyway, back to history here. The foundation was started there officially in 2003. And since we formed that, we expanded it to have expertise from education leaders, not only from water districts, but also school districts, county offices of ed, universities, and other environmental nonprofits. I asked for permission from the CEF Board of Directors to explore what the level of interest was in forming the Southern California Water, Energy, and Education Alliance. And over about a half year or so, talked with folks, again, from Walter at LADWP, Adrian Hightower there at Metropolitan, and Karen Cow at 10 Strands, and all of them gave me a thumbs up. They said, we think this is a great idea to see if we can't start forming workforce pathways for high school kids to get into the water and energy industry. And so we held our first roundtable in 2018 at the headquarters of LADWP in downtown LA. And we were doing an exploration at that point. We didn't have any support materially from anybody. And so I just said, we're a small foundation. If you guys could give us some small sponsorships, it was $2,500 per sponsor. I said, I'll go ahead and write a grant, and 10 Strands was generous enough to provide us more than a matching grant to all the sponsorships that I got from the energy and industry and the water industry. And so we were able to move ahead and hire a part-time CTE expert and a partnership facilitator. And so we moved on pretty quickly. Well, a lot of people were saying, well, why you as a foundation, why are you trying to lead this alliance? Because you're only coming from an education perspective. And so we had to say, look, we've got a 15-year track record of supporting statewide EE and environmental literacy. Our board of directors has expertise in water and energy and education. And we've sponsored and directed some world-class education research, which got published. And we've now really been helping educate teachers, especially in the LA area, but Northern California and Central California, and doing teacher workshops that challenge students to do something to care for the environment and challenge the teacher to connect that interest of stewardship to their NGSS science standards here in California. So what did we focus on during these roundtables? Well, first of all, we tried to find out, well, how much interest is in that? And just like your survey showed, 100% of the people that showed up, and it was over 40 people in our first meeting, said we definitely need to be working on this. We know this silver tsunami of retirees is beginning to happen. And Adrian mentioned just recently, it's accelerating. It's not just happening, it's accelerating. So everybody is very, very concerned that we have a workforce that's trained to fill in behind the people that will be retiring. So we started asking our participants in these roundtables to identify key strategies that the Alliance could use to strengthen those pathways. As Tiffany mentioned, you know, there are some partners, especially in industry, that don't understand what the education folks are up against in terms of being able to make this happen. You know, there's master calendaring, there's coordination with your counselors to help get kids interested in this potential job field. By the same token, the educators weren't really clear on what it is that the water and energy industry could supply to this partnership. So we wanted to increase this understanding and connection between career technical education and the California Environmental Literacy Initiative, of which 10 Strands has been working and developing for a number of years, to show that you know, students that are becoming environmentally literate can and should be also be told about the jobs in the water and energy industry. And Juanita Chan told us, I think at our second roundtable, how much the kids in her classes at Rialto High School saw that CTE was a way of them giving back to their communities. And I think that's awesome. I love that spirit. So we wanted to enhance the knowledge of how school districts can develop these workforce pathways in the energy, environment, and utilities sector. And you can tell that that sort of has some education-ese in it. And sure enough, there is a specific sector that was identified by the California Department of Education. And so they have specific standards to more than a dozen different sectors in career technical education. And this one really is a bullseye on the interest that we have in this group that's in our conference today. So we wanted to expand the awareness of the ways the industry can partner with the school districts. And we asked our participants to identify one or more promising CTE partnership strategies. So in other words, we wanted people to start sharing what their success has been and what some of their challenges have been too. And we shared what the key elements of a CTE workforce pathway should be. We got that, some of that from, you know, from our own expertise within our board of directors at CEF, and we also pulled that off the internet through the Department of Education. Then we had experts come from industry. I remember we had a special roundtable where LADWP brought in their experts in skillcraft recruitment, both in the water and the power systems. And people were really, really fascinated by that. And it helped them understand what it is, what kind of information students have to learn in high school to be able to migrate to, let's say, a community college and be able to get some dual enrollment credit with agreements between the community college and the school districts. We also wanted to help people conceptualize how to form these partnerships. And some of the discussion was to develop a concrete memorandum of understanding, an MOU. And you know, everybody's a little bit standoffish when it comes to putting something down on paper, but that's exactly the kind of security that a school district needs to know, that the district, that a local water or energy agency is committed to providing internships to students or providing expertise to the classroom. And then a school district is willing to step up and saying, okay, we'll look at our master calendar, and Juanita today will be talking about just how much effort is needed to make this happen, but that the success is really gratifying when you can see the kids moving into the field. So we wanted to help everybody understand, get a deeper understanding of the role school districts play and also county offices of education. We brought in folks that are partnering with Rialto from the local county office of education and community college that was working with Rialto, because we really felt that Juanita's program is one that's really a standout throughout the whole state. So we helped people develop an articulation of their plans. Some groups have started to coagulate, and it's pretty nice. I mean, we have an Orange County group, we have an LA group, we sort of have a high desert San Bernardino group, some of which I think are on the call today. So we established some of these partnerships, and we facilitate investigations and a dialogue amongst these people. And we convened 4 roundtables between 2018 and 2020. And we provided sponsor-specific research for potential education partners in each service region and sent that in the form of a final report to all 8 Alliance sponsors before we signed off. And some of you may be wondering, like, well, why did you guys bail? And unfortunately, that was just state legislation. AB 5 said that there was a presumption now as of January 1st, 2020, that there's not going to be such thing as a contractor anymore. Everybody's going to be an employee. And our little foundation said that's a deal breaker, and we need to find a sponsor to take over the leadership of WEEA. And thank goodness Tiffany Baca has stood up, and she's worked closely with her board. She got them to say, yes, we'll do the job. And she has some exciting news about where that has all gone since then. So I hope I didn't talk too quickly, but do I have any time for questions, or should we move on?
You have time for questions if there are questions. We'll adjust our agenda if we need to. Bill, it looks like you also did a really good job.
Woohoo.
Woohoo.
All right.
So let's go ahead and move on with our agenda. All of those great things that Bill just mentioned in a couple of slides, it's hefty, and that's what we're picking up. And because of the work and the foundation that Bill and Adrian and Walter and all of those who've been participating in this from the beginning and up until this point have inspired me, I really see the value and the potential of this alliance, and we're going to continue that great work and build upon it. I did want to say that, you know, this is an alliance. This is a coalition of people who are working together to build these pathways. So this isn't a passive group. This is something that we can contribute to together and be proud of, and we can invite others in to continue the conversation and continue to build our foundation for Southern California. One of the reasons that, you know, we are the municipal water district of Orange County, no doubt about it. We do represent 3.2 million people in Orange County. However, we're going to be doing the work anyways. So it's something that we need to get on the same page with and go through it powerfully together. With that, I'm going to share with you what we've accomplished in the the very few short months that we have assumed leadership. So the very first thing that I did, and there was a variety of reasons for this. Initially, the Alliance did have a reporting structure of calendar year, and keeping in mind what budgets look like and what our industry partners need to consider when they're considering maybe sponsorship or programs, I really wanted to keep in mind when the school year started and how we could get things done. So we changed to fiscal year for most of that. For most of us, that is July to June. So we did that for ease and for budgeting and reporting, but we also did that because I really need to get a better understanding of what we're able to accomplish in a year. You know, we going back to dreams. I mean, that seems to be the theme, right? I have great big plans, and I've heard from so many people who are very interested in the work that we're doing and want to continue that. It's just a matter of bringing everybody together and coming up with our master plan. So starting with fiscal year 2021, in the few short months, I have met with and provided board reports and committee reports to our MODOC board so they understand where we're going and where we've been. And I am working on the Q1 report for our sponsors. I have met with probably 75% of people who are attending today, you know, keeping in mind that this is just a portion of what I've taken on. I also do lead a team of 6 communications professionals to do the work of MODOC. So this is a big, heavy lift, but we're willing to do it. So meeting with folks to provide information, to talk about sponsorship potential, for my personal growth, because the education field is not my first area of expertise, although I'm doing my best to learn as fast as I can and learn from others, specifically many of those who are joining us today. And also to talk about opportunities. What is the opportunity for something like this? What can we come up with together? What haven't we thought of? And so, you know, obviously the plans are big, but to keep things realistic, we do have a set of deliverables that we've agreed upon, and those are very reasonable. So let's see what we can accomplish. The very great big news, I'm happy to announce that we have hired our part-time education programs assistant. As of last Friday, we made an offer to someone. We posted the job. We got hundreds of look-sees. We had over 30 folks who have applied, and we selected one. I'm not going to really get into this person's background until they've gone through the orientation process and become an official member of the MODOC/WEEA team. But I have hope. Reinforcements have arrived, so that's a big deal for us. Now I'm going to get into some of the exciting stuff, knowing that, you know, I came to WEEA last year, November, I think, and it was January that AB5 hit, and we needed to make some determination about what was the future of WEEA and who wanted to be a part of that and who wanted to take the lead on that. So, you know, I really had to get familiar with that, and I needed all of you to be familiar with me, and I needed to create some excitement and interest in CTEs, because really the big goal here is to grow the Alliance and grow our partnerships so we have resources to pull from. I did what I do best, and that is communications. So created a logo using the water, energy, and education primary colors so that we'd stand out and we'd be recognizable for everything that we participate in. We do have a web page now, and it doesn't have a ton on it, but it's got the basics. So if anything had inspired you, or you want to share information about who we are and what we do, you can drive people to that website and they'll be able to find most of what they need. We do have a sponsorship brochure, sponsorship form. You guys have seen the invitations. I've written newsletter articles and posted on social media to gain interest. And as I said, about half of our attendees today are brand new. So we're pretty excited that even though it's only been a few short months, I think we're making an impact. And then finally, what I wanted to share, and this just came in yesterday. So part of what we do to get people enthusiastic about the Alliance and the initiatives that we have are to create outreach materials such as the video I'm about to share with you. This as soon as I'm done sharing it, you guys are getting a sneak preview. This just came in yesterday. We haven't posted it anywhere, but this is going to help drive our conversation. So with that, we'd like to share our very first WEEA promotional video with you.
Recent studies show that in the next 10 years, the number of California residents aged 65 and older is expected to double, reaching 8.6 million. In the next 5 to 10 years, a flood of skilled water and energy industry professionals are expected to retire, and they are taking decades of institutional knowledge with them. The Water Energy Education Alliance is a powerful Southern California coalition of industry leaders who are working together to develop career pathway programs for Southern California high school students. These programs can lead to steady long-term jobs in the water, wastewater, and energy sectors that contribute to the welfare of workers, their families, and to the health of the state's economy. With the support of sponsors, the Municipal Water District, Orange County, and Alliance stakeholders will continue their mission to create opportunities for the next generation of skilled technical workers, ensuring a robust, secure pipeline of jobs for Southern California. To learn more, visit mwdoc.com/WEEA.
There it is, guys. Woohoo. I'm going to keep this on black for just a minute. This is you. I want to be very clear about that this Water Energy Education Alliance is a collaboration of everyone that's in this room and everyone that we hope to bring to the conversation. So you'll see me in the next couple of months and see MODOC in the next couple of months sharing this information. Please, you know, if you have others that are interested or see this video and want to learn more, please give them my contact information. All of you should have that, but if you don't, I'll make sure that you do in the chat and then following this meeting. So with that, let's move on to our next segment, introducing Dr. Adrian Hightower, the Education Unit Manager of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Metropolitan is also one of our 2021 WEEA sponsors, and we're so grateful that they came in at a larger amount this year to help supplement what we weren't able to secure in the first few months, although we are hopeful that our sponsors will grow. But I'm so grateful to Metropolitan for continuing to support us and support us as a member agency. We are also part of Metropolitan's member agency pool of 26 water providers. So Adrian's going to talk a little bit about our outcomes for today and then ask you a question about where you're at in your CT process. But let's start with outcomes. Adrian?
Sounds good. Can everyone hear me? How's my sound? Okay, wonderful. And thank you for removing that photo. That is a pre-COVID photo. That was a very different time. Thank you, Tiffany. And that was a wonderful video. I really liked the variety of the jobs that were displayed there. And it really speaks to the importance of what we're doing here today. It's also safe for me to say that, you know, Walter and Bill and I have been talking about this for 3 years, implementing it for 2 years. And I think, frankly, Tiffany and your team, you've done more in the last 5 months than we could have imagined. I'm really grateful for your work and your team's work, and I'm glad that you're taking the lead on this. As I mentioned, we've been working on this for a while, and we've steadily seen some increase in interest from all sectors, and we've also seen a lot of variety in terms of that interest. And you know, momentum was gaining pre-COVID, and now as we face COVID and we are adapting to that reality, this is the plan to do essentially what's on this slide in terms of discover, examine, and plan. This is the time to plan so that we are ready to deploy when opportunities arise. A lot of us are facing significant budget cuts, but there's still a lot that we can do despite that. Metropolitan Water District is the largest provider of water, fresh water in the nation that nobody's really heard of. But our service area includes 6 counties: Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Ventura, as well as San Bernardino and Riverside. So we are vested in your success. We work with a variety of water agencies, and myself as the education manager, I work with a variety of schools, all the way from pre-K to college. Personally, I'm a former college professor, so I've gotten to see and learn students from that perspective. And I've gotten to see the variety of opportunities that we have in our community colleges, in our trade schools, in our four-year universities. And so let's bring this home. In terms of what we're here today, we really want to focus on planning, and these are our main objectives, in one sense, to identify and prioritize industry needs and education needs. And I'll speak a little bit more on that, but there's certainly a dichotomy in that regard. Second, to not reinvent the wheel, to utilize some of the exemplary CTE programs that are out there, particularly for high school programs. And when we started this conversation 3 years ago, we recognized that there was a variety of trade schools, community colleges with well-established water programs. It was also fairly evident that very few high school students knew about this route. And so I think Juanita Chan is going to do a wonderful job of introducing the work that she's done with Rialto High and using that as a template that we can all emulate or build from. And finally, in terms of plans to develop and update our regional action plans. Our perspective, working in 6 counties, we've gotten to see a variety of interests in terms of some agencies or regions really interested in enhancing their high school program. Some agencies really interested in enhancing relationships or throughput to local established water programs at the community college and trade schools. Some other agencies really more focused on wastewater. Other agencies more focused on agricultural opportunities in water. I think there's a lot of heterogeneity in terms of what we're interested in, but there's a lot of commonality as well. And one of the main things that we all have in common is the need to improve the awareness of these opportunities. Tiffany mentioned her background. My background is my dad worked for Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for over 25 years and spent almost more than 30 years in the utility sector. And so I knew from a very young age that I definitely did not want to go into that sector. That was not something I was going to do. And it only took me about 40 years to figure out, oh, hey, he was right. Maybe I should have done that. But the point is that, you know, even though I had a unique perspective on utilities based on familiar relations, and that's not an uncommon story. A lot of us get into these jobs and these careers because of who we know. And our goal here is to expand who knows about our programs, to give everybody an opportunity and expand our resources. Cool, why don't we go to the next slide? All right, so from here, I'm so glad. I think this is one of the best attended WEEA meetings we've had. And we would like to gauge your level of engagement throughout the CTE process. Where are you at? And we'd like to use the chat in order to do that. So as a reminder, you can hit Alt-H on a PC, or you can look at the lower right-hand screen and you'll see a chat feature. But use the chat to put in 1, 2, 3, or 4, and let us know, 1, if you are alive and kicking with your CTE program, even with COVID. 2, if you're in the process of getting started, or 3, if you're interested in developing a program, or 4, you're brand new, you know it's a good idea, but you're really interested in how to get started. Let us know your feedback in the chat, and we'll use that. Oh, there we go. Wonderful. While folks are adding that, I'll say one more thing, that there are a lot of really knowledgeable people on this call. I spoke a little bit about my experience in the college, and one of the things I could clearly see was the dichotomy between the expectations in high school and the expectations in college from a student's perspective. I also have learned the difference in language in terms of standards and expectations from the K through 12 to the college level. I think that's something that we can address, and doesn't really require a lot of money, but it's a matter of communicating. And there are some wonderful folks with CTE experience on this webinar who can help do that. Good, and I think we got a healthy response. All right, thank you. I'm really glad for your participation. I'm looking forward to Juanita's presentation. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. So with that, and we did do this quick question and response for the benefit of everybody who's participating today, and also for our speaker, Juanita Chan, who's the STEM and College and Careers Pathway Coordinator for Rialto Unified School District. And Juanita is going to talk to us today about the challenges and steps along the way for creating a successful career technical education program. Juanita.
Hi, can everybody hear me? I'm hoping that you can, because I'm on this PowerPoint, so now I can no longer see your faces. So I'm just going to keep talking. So yeah, like they said, my name is Juanita Chan. I'm the STEM and College and Career Pathways Coordinator for Rialto Unified School District. Rialto is in San Bernardino County. We service about 25,000 students. We have 3 comprehensive high schools and a continuation school, 19 elementary schools, 5 middle schools. And we started this journey about 4 years ago. So we've been doing this for about 4 years. And so I just want to talk today a little bit about what our journey has looked like. And I think that when we start talking about career technical education and school just in general, it's all about managing the success and the challenges, because it's such a living organism. The schools are such a living organism. I also want to talk to the people that aren't in education specifically about the fragility of career technical education. So just to make sure that everyone is on kind of the same page, I wanted to take a second to provide 2 quotes, one from the former State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, about the goal of career technical education, and the other one from the new State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman. So just take a second to just read those. So as you were looking at those 2 quotes, and you might still be looking at those 2 quotes, if we had to summarize what the ultimate goal of career technical education is, I think that the cue from Sacramento is that the ultimate goal is to create a strong, capable workforce that continues to build upon itself. And that is, and if you're in a career technical education role in a school district, I think you very much understand that. However, if you are in a school district in a different role, then maybe you don't understand that. Maybe instead you understand this. So, so what do schools overall? So one of the reasons why I think it's difficult to get everybody swimming in the same directions is because, like any large organization, which schools are an incredibly large organization with lots of different stakeholders, is that everyone is viewing the information through their own schema, their own lens. And the people that are super close to the work, your site administrators, your teachers, your counselors, particularly at the high school level, instead of being so cued into what the theory behind career technical education is, you're probably more cued into this piece. So this is a guiding document for the California School Dashboard. And the California School Dashboard, for those of you not in education, is basically like the school's report card. It tells the public how schools are doing. And there's an indicator on the dashboard. So some of the indicators have to do with English and they have to do with math, but they also have an indicator indicator that has to do with college and career readiness. And this graphic is super complicated and convoluted, and that's pretty much how all of our stuff is in education. There's lots of acronyms, there's lots of viewpoints, interest points. But if you're looking here, what this graphic is basically saying for the purposes of today is that in order for a school to show up on the dashboard as green, which is, you know, everybody's like, ooh, blue, green, that's good. So in order to show up on the dashboard as blue or green or doing a really good job, a student has to show proficiency in one or multiple of these areas. So the assessments, the Smarter Balance assessments, are the regular tests that the students take at the end of the 11th grade. AP and IB exams are for your advanced students. Dual enrollment is a term that we use in order to talk about students that are able to take both high school classes and college or acquire early college credit while they're still in high school. There is an indicator that has to do with A through G requirements, and A through G requirements has to do with the University of California system and the California State University system. Those two systems have told K-12 that in order for a student to be considered ready for college, they have to complete a series of courses that have a designation as either A through G. The career technical education courses show up in G. A, I think, is history. The ones that I'm the most familiar with, just because of my job, is D is science, G is CTE. And then the last one is completion of a career technical education pathway. In order for a student to be considered a completer, they've completed the pathway, they have to have taken some courses that are organized based on an industry sector, which is what Bill was talking about earlier. And the state has issued a full-on book to tell students where these industry sectors are. People in positions like mine, and I saw a lot of people with ones in the chat, which means that in positions like yours are very familiar with that book, but people outside of the system, maybe not so much. The industry sector that we're talking about today is energy, environment, and utilities. And we'll talk about some of the challenges that go along with that industry sector if you are in a position like mine, as well as workarounds and how we've had to make it work, okay? What I think that your industry understands, so for the industry folks, this is my perception because I've had a lot of conversations with people in your industry, is that what you understand is that there's a silver tsunami coming, and yesterday, as I was talking to Adrian, it's only being accelerated by COVID. So people who are ready to retire are kind of leaning more in that direction just because of all of the situations surrounding COVID. I think that what that allows for a set of convergent goals for both of us, but that requires something. So does anybody know what this is? I really wish I could see the chat box right now. So take a look at it. There's the large picture on the left, and then there's a smaller picture on the right. There's a little bit of science teacher in me. I forgot to mention some of my background. I was an elementary school teacher, and then I was a secondary science teacher. My role is not just career technical education, but it's also STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of the strategies that we use all the time in the classroom is when you've got a new piece of information, to make very careful observations about it and think about what you notice about this object and what you wonder. So take a look. Does anybody know what this is? If you know what this is, can you put it in the chat? And I'm just gonna minimize my screen just so that I can kind of maybe see the chat because I'm genuinely interested.
And can you see that one?
Oh, I can see. Okay, some people did know what it is. Good job. Yes, you're right. That is the Rosetta Stone. So what is the Rosetta Stone? The Rosetta Stone was initially it was uncovered.
Uh-oh, Juanita, I think we may have lost your sound.
This is pretty entertaining. She's still going.
We lost your sound right after you came back.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Yes.
So 3 different scripts. Long story short, we missed something there. But it taught us how to read that ancient hieroglyphic script, and why this matters for this particular presentation is because I think that we're all trying to say the same thing, but we're all speaking a slightly different language. And as a result, that results in industries and schools kind of talking past each other sometimes. We're saying words, we think those words are the same, but they're actually not the same at all. And we have to figure out how to better communicate with one another. So if you are not in education and you see a document that looks like this, you might be wondering, what language is this? And this is the language of schools. In particular, this is the language of high schools. So in Rialto, so let's talk about some of the successes. So we wrote in conjunction with the UC Curriculum Integration Project and San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and Allison Lokey, who is also on this call, a set of courses. And actually there are 5 courses, there might be 6 courses. There are 3 courses that are strictly CTE, and then there are 3 courses that count as both a CTE course and a science course. So the first set of courses that we wrote, this first course in that sequence was called Solving Water Problems Through Integrated Science. And when we wrote this course 4 years ago, we submitted it into something called the UC portal, which if you are working in high schools, all of your high school courses have to be submitted. Well, they don't have to be, but it's highly recommended that your courses are submitted through the UC portal in order to say that this course has the rigor that's required by those systems. And you have to list them and tell them what courses you have. When we first started, we wrote this course. We were the only school that was offering these courses. So there were 3 schools. We were the only 3 that were offering these courses. And now there are over 20 schools that are offering this first course. So this is the language of success in education, and it'll be even more successful the more schools that that sign up to kind of teach these courses, and there'll be even more opportunities to expand. But previously, where it was just the 3, now there's over 20. So the second set of courses that we wrote, so the first one was Solving Water Problems. The second course was called Integrated Science and Water Technology. Again, we were the only 3 schools that were offering this, and now you see that there are about 6 different schools that are offering this. Both of these courses are listed as science courses and CTE courses, and so I want to take a second to just talk about what the difference for that is. So the difference between listing something as a science or a CTE course has to do mostly with teacher credentialing, but it's also with the alignment of the course. So on the previous slide, there was a link to the UC Doorways portal. So if you're interested in that, you would have that link. And on this slide, there's a link to a document. And actually, since I lost sound, I'm a little leery about clicking this link. But I guess I'll do it anyways, and let's just see what happens. Can you guys see this? Can you guys see the new screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, so what you have to show in order for it to be considered a science course is you have to show an alignment for the next generation science standards. So, so what we've created for these courses, where we created an alignment between all of the different science standards that went along with the CTE curriculum. And some of them, they didn't align that well, but we had to kind of force it in there, okay? So the next piece here is the third course in the sequence, and the third course in the sequence is Principles of Applications of Water. So when we start talking about Principles of Applications of Water, we're really talking about hydroelectric kind of ideas. So it allowed to bring in some of those energy kind of concepts that you wouldn't normally associate maybe with water or water careers. This is another success. As you can see, there are other schools, at least 4 other schools that are offering this. And you might be wondering whether it's still considered a success when you've got 20 people offering the first course and 6 people offering the second course and only 4 additional schools offering the third course. And I would say that it definitely is. Part of the reason why I would say this is because number one, in order to have a CTE pathway, you really only need 2 courses. Because these are science courses as well, in our district, we have a 3-year science requirement because NGSS, the goal there is all standards, all students. But most districts only require a 2-year graduation requirement. So the 3rd year course is really saying that people are bought into this idea and they're taking it all the way through, which I think is an amazing opportunity for us to collaborate. As we're moving through this, some of the factors that I've seen that have had the biggest effect on program success, the first one, first and foremost, is awareness. So like Tiffany was saying earlier, most kids are not aware of these opportunities at all. There's zero awareness about the water industry. And so you have to start building that awareness early and often. The second one, which is something that Bill brought up, has to do with scheduling. When we're talking about scheduling, we're talking about creating a huge document at each comprehensive high school that goes into making sure that every single student has 6 periods every day, and that those periods line up with A through G, they line up with the students' college or career goals, and take into account students' grades and things like that. So it gets really, really complicated, and you find a lot of pushback, particularly from counselors when it comes to scheduling. So I know that there was a slide earlier in today's presentation that was talking about the importance of doing outreach for counseling. The counselors are the key master. You know, who is the gatekeeper? Who is the key master from Ghostbusters? Hopefully you're familiar with that. If the counselors do not see there some kind of intrinsic value and it is extra complicated for them to schedule students in the class, what you get is you get misalignment with placement, and that messes up your whole program. The third piece here is high school student requests. So as an adult in the system, I like to think that we're guiding the students, but sometimes the feedback that you get from the sites is that the students are guiding the programs. So if you don't have students that request a course, then as a result, what happens is you have less and less students that are scheduled in that course until eventually your scheduling requests hit a number that's so low that the school can no longer support that class. That is a critical point, and actually that is what I kind of want to talk about when I'm talking about this moment, because in COVID in particular, and I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see that that is a dangerous territory for us, and the partnerships will hugely help in pushing schools to continue to do the right thing and continue to think about students after they leave high schools. That goes into course logistics. And then this idea of teacher preparation. The other piece that you have to consider is that in order to teach a course like the courses that we're describing, you have to fall into
Juanita, if you can hear me, your sound is stopped again. She can't hear.
Still entertaining.
I have had conversations, and Bill, that really in a lot of cases, those CTE teachers are like searching for unicorns. You're out there, you're looking for them, you're saying, hey, I know you're making a lot of money in the water industry. Let me lure you away so that you can make $50,000 a year so that you can teach these courses for us, because it's something really good for the community and really good for the kids. It's a hard sell. But I think that with some partners,
Juanita, we lost your audio again. I hope it pops in.
and say this
We're
is
getting the
important.
message through her body language. And, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you also need to have some pretty strong curriculum, because for teachers, it's also a tough sell, especially if they're not CTE teachers. They didn't come from the water industry. Instead, they are science teachers, which is what I have. My science teachers have the heart. They understand the science behind it. They don't necessarily have the expertise. They've never worked in the water industry. They might understand the importance of natural resources from like an environmental literacy perspective, but it's also about building that teacher understanding about what the water industry is all about. I have met so many people from the water industry, and everybody has been absolutely amazing. And they're people that you would want to work with on the daily basis, but teachers don't necessarily know that. So it's getting teachers out and into externship opportunities so that they can feel more comfortable and that they can really express to students the excitement that goes along with water industry jobs. Funding is always an issue. It's an issue for me personally because I'm using credentialed science teachers and I'm not using CTE teachers. So I saw in somebody's title, it said linked learning and CTIG. And CTIG is a form of funding specially dog-eared for CTE. There's also Perkins funding, which is specially dog-eared for CTE. There's strong workforce program funding, especially dog-eared for CTE. But in order to have any access to any of that funding, your teacher has to be a CTE credentialed teacher, or you can just forget that. So in the science world, that means that all of my courses are funded through the general fund, which makes it hard. And last but not least, it's that consistency piece. So consistency is very, very important for schools. And it's important, and that's why Bill was talking about those MOUs and those agreements. It's important mostly because we are an old, clunky machine. One district is old and clunky. If you're talking about 54 districts in California, then it's super old and clunky. And that's what we're seeing right now with COVID is that we don't flex well. It's super hard for us to flex. If we're going to try and do something with industry, then we want to have some really clear pieces about what everybody's role is. And it's a mutual agreement. And those mutual agreements help the administrators, they help the whole organization to just say, okay, we can't just pull out at any moment because we've made a commitment to a partner. I want to talk a little bit now about the successes. So those are all the challenges, but I want to talk a little bit about the successes. So these are some of ours, this idea of developing awareness, the idea of developing awareness through environmental literacy. So we've got a partnership with our local water districts that allow us to take elementary school students to both to the water treatment plants and the wastewater treatment plants, but also that they bring experts in to talk about all kinds of issues. We have water days specially designed. We bring in all of the fifth graders, we bring in all of the second graders in order to have these experiences. The group on the left here, they went through a whole piece about gravity-fed systems and how they purify the water and what that process looks like. And then we took that group of students up to the local like surface water area, and we don't really have a lot of surface water, but they did a stewardship project to pick up litter so that kids are better aware about where their water comes from. We did, on the right, you see the girls, they're working on an aquifer project to teach them about aquifers, how things seep into the aquifer, pollution prevention, things like that. We move that up to middle school, and at the middle school level, we also do another event called Career Cruising, where we get them thinking about what kind of careers they're interested in. They take interest profilers. We bring in experts from our local water agencies again, and we do these hands-on events. So you see the students are doing some water quality samplings. We've got, mock-ups of different kinds of filtration systems, etc. And throughout all of these processes, we talk to kids about their awareness, specifically about the jobs in the water industry. And even doing all that, we're just barely in our fourth year, or last year actually, because of COVID. This year it's a little bit different. But last year in our third year, we were barely starting to see an inkling of an increase in students that were interested in this area. And my fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping and praying that the situation with COVID doesn't take us too many steps backwards. What speaks to students? So typically when adults talk to kids about careers, we talk about things like benefits and salary and annual income and blah, blah, blah. That's what the kids hear. And the kids hear Charlie Brown's mom, wah, 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 wah. What speaks to students, we've found, is this idea of being a hometown hero, really giving back to your community. How can you do something for your community and kind of still earn a living wage or be able to take care of yourself and your family? So we don't talk so much in hard numbers. We did a whole set of flyers that had hard numbers on it that didn't speak to anybody. We're focusing now on the community aspect of it and how you can make your space better. We are also talking about social justice and climate justice issues and recognizing that jobs in these areas and these skills, even if you don't have a job in this area one day, that these skills help to make you a better informed citizen, less likely to be taken advantage of. Okay, here are some other successful strategies, and I was delighted to see, we kind of just stumbled upon them, and I was delighted to see them in Tiffany's survey that she sent out. But another piece that has been really successful for us is the field trips, making sure that there's lots of hands-on experiences. Competitions are huge. Any kind of competition, it doesn't matter, because it just brings more people into the conversation. Internships, we're still working on that. Even micro internships, we had started there, and then because of COVID, it got a little messed up, but we're still keeping our eyes on the prize. Guest lectures, depending on what the lecture topic is about. Job shadowing, site tours, except for when they're at wastewater treatment plants. I would like to say that the kids are super excited about the wastewater, and true enough, there's a subset of kids where, yeah, they really get down on it. But a lot of kids, just the smell by itself, you have to build it up. You have to build it up. Mentorships is another hugely successful one, but it takes the right kind of mentor. We found that that for our African American and our Hispanic boys, to find a mentor that looks like them is really, really helpful. And last but not least, it's this idea that all experiences matter. Classroom experiences. So this is the hands-on lab that they're doing inside the class to talk about topography and flood channels and population density. And then on the left-hand side, these kids had never gone fishing before, and they were super stoked about it because of where we are. When is also key. That's the other piece that we've discovered, is that doing these things early on in the year lead to more engagement throughout the year. When you save all those great opportunities until the end of the year, which is what we kind of tend to do, some of the excitement drops off over time. And so that win is really important as well. Moving forward, the successes, the challenges, those are the successes and challenges that are directly linked to the kids. But as you're doing this, you also have to think about how that relates to what you're reporting to the state, because career technical also requires you to report a whole lot. I know that there are a lot of words on the slide, and I hate really putting up slides that have a lot of words, but these are all the different areas that you have to report on. And I think it's important that industry partners see that. As an industry partner, I want to focus you in on a couple. The first one is leadership at all levels, in particular, those articulation agreements. Those articulation agreements are hugely important. And I was having a conversation with Walter yesterday where we recognize that it's a hard sell for the industry to just say, give us all your 18-year-olds and we'll find you an entry-level job. But we don't necessarily have to tell the kids that that's what's going to happen. We just have to give them a clear vision of what it is that they're trying to do after they graduate. So take these classes in high school, take these, hopefully you have some dual enrollment opportunities there. And then after you leave, you have opportunities at community college, you have opportunities at four-year college universities. And then from there, while you're doing that, you should really think about internship opportunities, because by the time you finish, these are the kind of entry-level jobs that you'll be prepared for. And we need to have that clearly written out, and it needs to be something that we can use as both a promotional piece and as a reporting piece. If you skip down to number 3, that's student counseling and guidance. That student counseling and guidance, yes, that's great. The guidance counselors are wonderful sometimes, but it's also important that kids are getting that guidance from people outside of the organization, because for whatever reason, the kids don't really see us as all the time as we're like their moms and dads. Your mom and dad can tell you lots of stuff, but when the neighbor tells you the exact same thing, you're like, oh, that was genius right there. Number 5, which is that industry partnership piece, the labor market demand is something that we sometimes struggle articulating to our colleagues in our districts. Industry approved curriculum, basically everything in that number 5 category. And then number 8, that number 8 category is also super important. Number 9, if we're really going to ask for something, I would say that those professional development activities and opportunities, and focus on appropriate teacher credentials. I think Bill, I don't know if he mentioned it, but if you are seeing that silver tsunami heading your way, maybe instead of just letting them drift by, Bill said something yesterday, and I'm going to steal it. He said, hand them a surfboard and say, hey, you're retiring from here. Maybe you want to come back and you want to teach a set of classes. And how much you're making isn't necessarily as important anymore, because you're also getting your retirement someplace else. But it will help to feed a channel of students that move through the organization. Number 10, that yearly strategic planning. I think that's something else that we really need to focus in on. That strategic planning within our organization, since there's so many schools teaching these classes now, for us to collaborate and really align what it is that we're doing, and to talk to the industry partners to make sure that the stuff that we were teaching 6 years ago is still going to be relevant to your organizations today. Outreach, and of course, community service in number 11. Answers about some of those challenges. What's happening next year? You never know. There's constant changes in leadership at both district levels and with our partners. And so that consistent developing of a vision is hugely important. And with COVID, it's all just up in the air. So what do we need? We definitely didn't want to come this far to only come this far. I'm hoping that you leave this meeting feeling super inspired to do what it is that you can do. I think Tiffany brought it up earlier. The pieces that I want to focus in on here is really a commitment to that entry-level job placement and to informing the organization, so the K-12 schools, about what skills are necessary for the kids to get those entry-level job placements, to develop that professional network for the kids, because they don't have it. And a lot of what I've heard from Water is just like, oh, I got into this because my dad was in it, or my uncle was in it, or my mom was in it. And for our kids, we don't. They don't have those parents that are there that are already in those industries, and we're trying to build that professional network for them. Of course, the memorandums of understanding and the partnership agreements. And I think I've gone over my time, so I will stop there.
Juanita, you may have gone over your time, but the chat, even private messages to me, are blowing up. So people are enjoying what you have to say. Again, 50% of this meeting are brand new to this conversation, and you've provided so much for us to think about. So thank you. We'll start there. And then I'd like to invite those who have questions for Juanita to raise their hand, and we'll call on you. We do have time for questions. Now's the time. I've heard my brain is going a million miles a minute. This is a lot of information for us to grasp, but I'm so glad that you've done this today. We've recorded this for those who are questioning that or who are looking for the presentations. All of this will be sent to you following the meeting. So if you need some more time to absorb, that's perfectly understandable. If you have a question for Juanita, please raise your hand and we'll call on you for questions.
So I also just want to say one more thing, and that is, if you are interested in the content of the classes, I added a link. So Adrian asked me to add a link to the slide. I did add the link. So anybody who has the slideshow, and I think they can, I don't know where you're housing all the stuff, but I'll make sure that Tiffany gets it so that you can feel free to explore those links on your own.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to collate it all and present it in a nice, pretty package so people know where to find things. We don't have any questions, which I think is astonishing. But
so there is a question in the chat from
good.
So Dennis, has the UCCI curriculum been updated recently? So the last time it was updated was 4 years ago. So this is the first year that we've had a chance to actually go through all 3 levels of curriculum, because as we went through it, as we wrote it, basically we did a staggered implementation process. So the first year we only did that first class, solving water problems, and we did it with a group of seniors that it wouldn't mess up, because we were using it as their lab D, their science credit. So it wouldn't mess up their graduation if they, you know, we were trying something out. We didn't want to mess kids up. We wanted to give them more opportunities, not less. So that being said, that first year we did the class just with seniors to try out the curriculum. The second year we opened up the class for 9th graders. And so those 9th graders took the solving water problems. So then last year we did the, we just did the solving water problems and water technology class. And then this year was the year before that was when we did those 2. Last year we did the 3rd year, but it got a little bit, it was the first time we did the 3rd year, but it got a little bit messed up because of COVID. So in March, they were running through and we had some opportunities for the kids to go and do some stuff at the end of the year, but all that stuff got canceled. So we're teaching that class again, and we're working on still getting those internship pieces together, both with our local water agencies, with an organization called Big Picture Learning. We're trying to keep the momentum moving forward.
Perfect.
Juanita, this is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Just a quick question. There may be some industry people that know of folks that are either retiring or that are interested in maybe transitioning to the classroom. How challenging, yes, how challenging is it for a person to do that? And can you sort of give us an idea of what they have to do in order to become CTE credentialed?
Yeah, for sure. So in order to earn a CTE credential, you have to have 300, let me go back to my thing. I think it's, and maybe somebody can help me out. I think it's 300 industry hours in the last 3 years. So if you've been working full-time as a water person for the last however many years, it's not going to be a problem at all. What you have to do though is that the credential has to be, you have to have a partnership in some way with a school district, because the credentials you can't get on your own, you have to get in conjunction with the school district. Especially if you've got a district that's teaching these kinds of courses, they might be willing to help to push that through. But essentially, it's super easy. So you have the evidence that if you've been working in the field, it's super easy. You have the evidence that you've been working, that you have your 300 or the 500 industry hours, and then you take letters to the district. The district submits the letters to whoever they have their credentialing partnership with. We have ours with San Diego County office. And then I think there's like 2 classes that you have to take. They're online classes. One of them has to do with just pedagogy, secondary pedagogy. And then the other class has to do with the Constitution, because as a teacher, you always, uphold the Constitution. So you take those 2 classes, you get your credential, and then you just have it. And you can, pay to, what's that called? Like re-up it. My brain's not functioning with words right now, but you pay every once in a while just to have that credential, to keep it relevant or whatever. But the crux of that, thank you, Emily. Emily says she thinks it's 1,000 industry hours, and it might be, because now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it is. It's 1,000 industry hours. But long story short, if you've been working full-time in the field, it's not a problem. The problem is when you try and get teachers who have full-time jobs credentials, because it takes a really long time. What was I saying? After that, you can just keep it for as long as you want. But if you don't apply for it, like right when you retire, let's just say, and you wait a few years, maybe 3 or 5 years, then it's you're no longer eligible, because the amount of time that you have in the industry, it's time dependent. So the clock starts ticking. Oh, I'm no longer working in this agency. And so that becomes important. And thank you. So Emily has added something way more official in the chat for you, and it's the CTC, which is the California Teacher Credentialing Office. So they have a leaflet there for you. Perfect.
Thank you.
So Juanita, I'm assuming that most of the folks on the call today are going to go back and review your presentation and review what we've talked about here today, because it's, there are a lot of steps to it. Do you have a sort of a checklist of the steps that you took, or some sort of process that maybe we can make a best practice or a model of and follow?
Oh, that's a great idea. No, I was not that reflective, but I can work on something like that. It takes at least a year of planning be on the front end. And that year of planning is really about finding your partners inside your district. So who's going to be the teacher? How are we going to get it on the master schedule? Because that master scheduling piece is a big deal. Do we have students that are interested in taking this class? Because you can't just drop a kid. Well, you can just drop a kid in the class, but that's not building the class for success. We tried that and that doesn't work. So just learn from us that you really want to ask the kids, give them the background. It's also helpful to bring some parents into that conversation so that the parents understand what it is that you're trying to do, that they're also on board. It's something new and different. Typically there's some kind of, in schools, we do some kind of like press release, which is also very helpful because it gets the community kind of aware. And so I will work on that for you, Tiffany. That would be good, a checklist.
Juanita, call on me if you need help. I will help you work on that. I think that's going to be a really good tool for all of us who are new to this process moving forward. It'd be great to build some sort of model, understanding that there might be steps that some of us need to skip or add, but it would create a great foundation. I did also want to acknowledge that you mentioned, and this is a really big point for industry. I say this because I've been in industry now for 12 years and this comes up a lot. And part of it is the fear of having jobs when these students retire, how much investment you put into the program, time, money, resources, especially if it's a little complicated. But you made a really good point. This doesn't necessarily mean, and students can understand that this doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a job at MODOC tomorrow or LADWP, but it opens up doors and it is access to a whole big world that even those of us on this call today aren't considering. And one of the things that kind of struck me, and what I'm going to also work on, is bringing more energy folks into the conversation, but also bringing more engineering firms into the conversation. So, we do have partnerships with firms that work on desal plants, or firms that design water treatment plants or recycling plants. And I think that engineering is another great option. And this is just, it's a dream, guys. It's allowing students to see themselves and their potential as a contributor in citizenship, in good stewardship, and to an economy and their families, all of the things that our video had mentioned, because there's so much more to this than just providing a program where kids can get involved and become water and energy industry professionals. And then also let's consider the next generation of environmentally friendly resource development, right? So solar and wind, there's a lot more to this than even this conversation. So allow your mind to open up the possibilities, think outside your box, and that's what we're here to do.
And I just want to say that we've definitely seen an increase in all of those things that you're speaking about. Last year, the year before last year, we had an increase, like 30%, 33%, almost a third of the graduating seniors that were going directly into college, a four-year college or university, declared some environmental something in their major: environmental studies, environmental business, environmental law. So it was a really interesting kind of phenomena that I think is also really important for this conversation, because even students that you can't find jobs for, the skills that you're going to learn by partnering and being more informed about how to read those those consumer confidence reports that you guys send out. It's like those skills are going to help every single student, whether they enter into this field or not. And that's how we've really pushed it forward. Allison, I did want to mention in the chat box, Allison brought up, so the other 2 classes that were also approved for CTE, we aren't offering them because we can't find a teacher to teach them, but they are water policy to water wars. And then there's another one that was, and that one I think is a government econ class. So if you're interested in one of those, and then the other one I think was called Water Works. So I just want to mention those. If you're looking at the PowerPoint on the slide, the resources aren't just for the 3 science classes, the 3 water science classes, but they're also for, you'll find the resources for those other 2 classes in there as well.
It looks like you have another question from Emily Courtney. Emily, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, can you hear me, Juanita? All right. I have a kind of a 2-part question. We worked on a similar initiative with Baywork in the Bay Area, also a coalition of water industry agencies. And there were 2 challenges that we faced in working on developing water career pathways. One is the constraints of the CTE education system. So you talked about this, Juanita, and I have just a kind of a tactical question on how you overcame it. I can send this visual to the group, but State of California has 15 industry sectors. Within each industry sector, there are multiple career pathways, and the system is somewhat constraining. You have to, if you have a multi-course series, you have to hit each of the standards. And to be eligible for the funding streams that Juanita talked about, you have to work within the system and have to have the credentialed teachers. You have to hit each of the standards. And there isn't a clear water career pathway. It aligns with environmental resources and energy, environment, and utilities sector. It relates to ag and natural resources, to engineering, but there's no real clear permission to train students for water career pathways. So Juanita, I wanted to clarify a point. So are you saying that when you guys are offering the courses in Rialto, you're offering them as straight science courses, not actually as CTE courses? Is that right?
That's correct. And that's how we worked around that. But so this is the caveat to that. So on CalPads, and this is going to sound like a whole foreign language to people who aren't in schools, so just disregard this if it's not relevant. But in CalPads, what you can do is that you still list it as a CTE class in CalPads. So there are 2 fields that you go in and say, okay, yeah, this is the pathway for this. These are the 2 California codes that go along with this. And I get to count those students technically as completers of that pathway, but I cannot use any of my CTE funding in order to fund the classes. And that's what I was talking about with the CTIG and the Perkins and the Strong Workforce programs. Until I get a CTE teacher, I can't use that funding stream. So all the funding for the classes is coming from, the general fund, which is not ideal because in the general fund, we are pinching the pennies until they bleed. We have some partners that allow for like our field trip pieces where the partner pays for the bus for the field trip. So when we go to the water treatment plant, it's like they'll pay for the bus. They will send the guest speakers at no charge to us. When we went to the, Lytle Creek, they paid for that. When we go to the lake, they pay for those pieces. And that's how we've had to work it through. We do some fundraising, outside of water, but that's our workaround.
That is a tough situation. I just want to share that with the group that there actually is there are a lot of resources, both through the 2 funding streams that Juanita mentioned, CTIG and Strong Workforce. For secondary CTE education, there's a lot of potential funding out there, which really can't be easily accessed for water career pathways. It's a bit easier for energy career pathways because we have a energy and power technology pathway, and there's a lot of energy content in the environmental resources career pathway. But if we could work together collaboratively to slowly move the system toward allowing CTE resources to be dedicated toward water career pathways, that would be really a meaningful outcome for the coalition. And there is a lot of intention to modify the CTE standards in the state of California in the coming years. So that would be great for this group to participate in. And Juanita, the second part of my question was around, in working with water industry in the Bay Area, there was so much concern about the silver tsunami, and yet it was very difficult to get a foothold for our young people, either coming out of high school or community college programs, and to get them their initial work experience. And so I was wondering if you could tell the group a little bit more about how you get students actual work experience in the field, and if you've been successful in developing partnerships with local industry.
Yeah, so that's the part that we're still working on. And last year that was our big, like, hey, hurrah, but then but then at the end of the year it kind of trickled off. So we're still trying to build the hurrah for that. And the piece was internship. As I'm answering this question, I also want to go to Rose in the chat, because Rose is from San Bernardino City Schools, and she said that they had a hard time finding a CTE teacher for their high school class as well, and they had a lot more luck with the school students taking the college water classes through concurrent enrollment. We offer that same series of water classes, but we also had to be really intentional with our concurrent enrollment sequence, right? Because that sequence in our district, they wanted to start us off with like water math, and like the kids don't want to take regular math, and then you're like, hey, 7th period, why don't you take water math? That sounds fun. No, it didn't. So we had to like switch it around and still work on that like awareness piece quite a bit. That leads into the internship piece, right? Because we intentionally are looking for the students that are willing to take both those, the regular high school classes, the concurrent enrollment classes, and then it shrinks our pool down to maybe like 5 kids. So like from 150 students who we start off with to maybe like 4 or 5 students that we're really trying to link them up to provide that mentorship and that internship piece. So the success that we've had there is we have a program that's supposed to start this year to do internships with 3 students. And like I said, we're working with big picture learning right now in order to get those students actually into the workforce. The other success is that we worked with East Valley Water District in order to take teachers and do externships for the teachers that were teaching the program. And the other piece is just developing that mentorship model. That was the other piece. It took us a really long time. The reason why it took us so long, it had to do with legal liability, right? So you've got these working water treatment plants. The students aren't 18. Who has the liability for the students? When you work, like Rose was talking about, through a concurrent enrollment program, so when they're concurrently enrolled as a college student, then in a sense it emancipates the students even though they're not 18. So now the liability moves, it shifts over to the community college so that you can better look for internship partners that way than just to go directly from the school to the water agencies. Sometimes, I don't know, that's our experience, that by having the students emancipated in that way where they're community college, students, the community colleges help to facilitate that internship piece so that it's not such a heavy lift for schools, for the water agencies that you're talking about. We're also exploring, you brought up Bayworks, and I'm glad that you did, because one of the water agencies in our area is exploring working with Bayworks way down in like Rialto to have a conversation about how, while that was a problem in the past, how maybe we can just, link up an internship just directly, just the 2 organizations. We haven't done that yet, but the conversations have started. So.
Cool. Hey, I got one last quick question. I know we're short on time, but thank you,
Right.
Emily and Juanita, for bringing that up, because I think it highlights the need to increase partnerships between the high school programs and the college trade school programs to help facilitate that. But in terms of Rose's question, in terms of getting more qualified CTE teachers, Juanita, can you talk about the difficulties or challenges or possibilities, or maybe it's easy to get part-time CTE teachers? I'm going to retire I think I want to teach. I don't want to teach 6 classes a day because I'm retired, but I wouldn't mind teaching 1 class a day or something like that. How flexible are school districts in that scenario?
Yeah, so I think that we're becoming more and more flexible in that area. And it's definitely going to depend on your school district that you're talking to. But like I said, if you've got a collaborative, it's a lot easier to make the argument when you're in a collaborative, right? Because you can use that as leverage as you're talking to your own district admin. Like, hey, I heard in San Bernardino they're doing this. You think we can do this too? What it would look like is, or in LA, they're doing this. What it would look like is having a conversation probably with your CTE coordinator as well as an associate superintendent or your human resources department, whatever you guys call those, personnel, we call it personnel, but about creating a consultant style schedule. So a consultant style schedule would mean that you would be a part-time teacher. You would teach for maybe 1 or 2 periods per day. And it would probably be like either 0 and 1st period. So either you're a super early riser, or 6th and 7th period, because they very rarely like to put stuff in the chunk of the day, in the middle of the day. But that frees up the district from you being considered a full-time employee. And there are opportunities with CTE funding that might also help to like sweeten the pot a little bit. The funds that a district might use to hire you as like a teaching consultant, essentially, could be matching funds for some of those grant opportunities. So, I mean, if anybody's interested in trying that out, we could definitely help you out there. And I'm sure maybe Rose might be able to help you out too. But yeah, that's what that would look like. You would still need that full credential, right? So you would still have to go through and take those 2 classes and turn in your letters. But then if that's something that's more palatable for you, then yeah, just talk to your district office folks.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Juanita.
What about the, I had a question about the emergency. I heard about there's an emergency credential. LA Unified was telling me that you can go without, you could apply, you just take the CBEST test and you can get a credential. And I think it's good for 2-3 years. Although while you're doing that, you'd have to get the full credential, because if you wait the 3 years, you lose the back time in terms of in terms of the experience, but it would get you through the door and wouldn't take as long up front, right? Or no?
Yeah. I don't think so. Yes, there are emergency credentials in my district, so I can only speak from my own personal experience. In my district, the emergency credentials are kind of reserved for your core content teachers. So they're reserved for English and math teachers, science teachers. For CTE teachers, I had 3 new CTE teachers start last year. And really the process, once you submit to get your credential, you can almost teach right away as long as you're concurrently enrolled in your college programs. So for CTE, the process is very different. In fact, CTE teachers, my CTE teachers didn't have to take the CBEST. The CBEST is the California Basic Skills Test, but because they're teaching a CTE class, that's fine. I guess the limitations to that is sometimes they do things like period coverage, like that means like, oh, a teacher is absent for this period and I want to sub. My CTE teachers are not allowed to sub in any other classes because they don't have a credential. They're not considered credentialed for that subject. They're only credentialed for CTE. But if you don't care about that, then it's not something super terrible.
I guess it changes, like this was with LA Unified, and of course, LA Unified covers my service area 100%, and it's actually bigger. So when we go public school in our local area, LA Unified, that's what happens in LA. So yeah.
Yeah.
There's in LA County alone, there's like 82 districts, and you bring the rest of Southern California, there may be more than 100. So it's and every district maybe has little different rules.
Yeah.
Still, I think it's still important to be aware of as an option anyway. And I guess everyone have to check with their own district or districts that they're working with to figure out what might work.
And the really great thing about that is we're an alliance and we're going to continue this conversation long after today. So We're going to take a quick break. Thank you so much again, Juanita, and thank you to all of our participants who really jumped in there and shared a lot of information and asked a lot of great questions. And I think we're going to continue that in the months ahead. So big thanks. And if you can give Juanita some love in the chat, we always like to see that. That way she wants to continue to work with us. That said, we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. It was 15 minutes on the agenda. We're changing it around a little bit because all this is really information. So really good information. So we'll see everybody back here at 11:05. Take a stretch break, grab something to eat, grab some water, and we'll see you again shortly. We're going to go ahead and move a couple of things around on the agenda today. I want to introduce Walter, who many of you know, who is the manager of education outreach for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. And Walter has been doing this an awfully long time. And boy, especially from an industry perspective, Walter doesn't know this, but when I first got involved with the education stuff and I started attending the Metropolitan Education Coordinator meetings, Walter actually intimidated me because I thought, oh my goodness, there's no way that I'm going to learn half of what this guy knows in the 10 minutes he's been speaking. So I'm really proud to say that LADWP has stepped in again as a sponsor of WEEA, and we appreciate that, of course. And we appreciate Walter's insight. And he wants to share with you a little bit about what it means to be a sponsor of WEEA and where he's found benefit. So Walter, you're up.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. This is very exciting. Thank you for all your effort. Juanita, of course, did her usual, her second time that she's spoken at WEEA and done an outstanding job. And it's really eye-opening to hear from the school side. I've been involved with education for more than 30 years at LADWP, and been at Water and Power now 43 years. And so have a lot of experiences, and we at DWP have been involved in career education way back since 1990. We had a youth service academy going. We have it still going. We have some internships, but CTE is new to us, and it's through Bill Andrews. Thank you for Bill for your great introduction of the program, and CEF that we started working on this. And so what I wanted to share was some ideas about why it's important for utilities and in some cases school districts to increase the sponsorship for WEEA. And the reason is that we need MWD, ODOC, Municipal Water District, while they're starting to fund some of this themselves, they need some assistance from utilities especially, and from the school districts to keep these meetings going. And frankly, in my experience, it's the smaller, you have the roundtable meetings, sometimes you have regional meetings. Adrian and I met with LA Unified as an example in a smaller meeting. But it's these smaller meetings where the rubber meets the road and where activities and partnerships develop and grow. And in fact, in our case, Raquel Stiles is participating today. She's actually been appointed from LA Unified to work with us in developing this relationship. And so it's important, as has been mentioned about the silver tsunami, which, could be, I think is accelerating. And so we're going to see a lot of our experienced staff leaving in record numbers. We need to fill these positions, and even though we're going through difficult times, utilities are essential services. Customers need water and electric services. Also, another benefit is the CTE programs also support and are integral to environmental education, which is, I think, one of the reasons why 10 Strands helped CEF with the grant to develop WEEA. But also as part of the funding process, we had last year, we had 7 or 8 utility sponsorship. We'll continue to need this support even in grant, even if there are grant funds available. There's Perkins funds now, there's some other CTE funds, there might be federal funds available. But even if you have grant funds, most of these require partnerships. And so, I really want to encourage, especially the industry partners to, each one of you that are here representing utility or other organizations, if you go back and talk to your management about providing a small sponsorship for WEEA, I think it's really important to keep this going, and to make sure that we'll have a viable coalition for a number of years. And the one thing I also mentioned, that most of us that are here, whether we're in a school district or schools, or we work for utility, most of us are public. We're government agencies, regardless of size. I mean, we have 10,000 employees. School district has, LA Unified alone has 60,000. There's some utilities that have, 50 or 100 or 200, but regardless of the size, we're government agencies, which means we have established criteria and programs and things we have to go through for approvals, budgets, and everything else. And as Juanita has shared, things take time. And one of the things that I've learned, at least at the middle management level, is that when you develop programs, you do them little by little. Unless the general manager or your top person has an idea and wants to, go full bore, normally, I use the boiling frog method. You build on it, a little bit every year, and in a couple of, 3-4 years, all of a sudden you got a full-size program. So, but in order to keep this going, we need WEEA to serve as the catalyst to encourage these meetings, to have regional meetings, and then to encourage individual meetings between the school districts and the member agencies, in order to foster these different activities. And I know we have a lot of needs, such as encouraging retirees to become credentialed CTE teachers. That takes a heavy push. I know Melvin Spears was on the call, and he's in our skill craft group. But we also need to work with HR, and our HR group, as an example, helped me fill out the survey. One of the things I want to notice, that I noticed that in the survey, is that we have down that in 10 years we're going to need to fill 50% of our staff. I think we have a big chunk right now that could walk out the door tomorrow. So, well, I think we have a little bit of time. We need to try to address this. And the thing is, we don't hire many entry-level students, out of high school right now. In the school district, at least LA Unified, that's not their goal. The goal is to get the kids to learn about these industries, to focus on them, and then to take the community college or university courses so that they can get in these fields. And our job is to get the word out to the schools and to the high schools. And it's a complicated thing that will take a number of years. So I ask for your support for WEEA, and hopefully we can, continue to grow. And, Tiffany's done an absolutely fantastic job in 4 or 5 months with the different materials and the outreach and everything else. I know with her leadership, we'll be able to continue this. And, as one of the founding members of CEF, and like I said, I go back with CEF since I started this in '87, and then helped it as it transformed into the foundation as we have it now with Bill and some others. That WEEA's in terrific hands, and we want everyone to continue this. And like I said, we need to look at this as a long-term process. So that just, hopefully everyone can sort of go back and help with the funding so that this program can continue and help us all as we try to combat this silver tsunami.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Walter. Everyone should have a Walter in their corner. We will continue this work. We will continue to answer questions about sponsorship. Please send me an email if you're interested, tbaca@mwdoc.com. One of my team members will put that in the chat so that you have it. I'm happy to answer any questions. We did run a little bit long on our presentation this morning, so we're going to change the agenda around just a little bit. We're still going to do the regional breakout groups because that's really important. However, instead of doing a share out when we get back, I want you to identify one person in your group who will put in the chat just a handful, 2 or 3 components to this question. So utilizing the exemplary CTE program at Rialto High School, identify which components of your region's workforce pathways need reinforcement. Come up with 2 or 3 examples, and when we return, put those in the chat, and then we're going to have regional updates from some of the leaders that are actually spearheading some advisories, and we'll talk a little bit more about that down the road. We do hope that you gather together and learn from each other and grow your regional groups, and then we're here to help with that. So please also let me know if you need help with that or how to get started if you haven't already started. So we're going to go ahead and break out into regional breakout groups and start discussing this question. Everyone's starting to come back, and as I had mentioned, in the interest of time, typically we'd have a share out here, but we would appreciate if you put your 2 or 3 components that you identified in the chat. In addition to having the presentation shared and this being recorded, we're also going to share all of the responses and the comments that we have in the chat. So you're going to have access to everything here today, with the exception of the breakout room. So bring what you learned in the breakout when you start reviewing the materials again. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our regional shares. And John, do you have your presentation ready on your end, or do you need me to bring that up?
If you can pull it up, that's fine.
Okay, great. Give me just 1 second. How about, John, give me just a minute to go ahead and do that. I think Stephanie Haas, if you're in the house, I think you're going to give an update for Inland Empire Utility Agency, and that'll give me a few moments to bring up John's presentation. Stephanie, are you, there you are, great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to discuss what's happening with the Inland Empire Utilities Agency, what we've been working on. Even during COVID, we've been significantly increasing our efforts to create career outreach programs and education partnerships to establish some pipeline connections with our school districts and the learning institutions in our service area to create these academic programs for the water industry. Just a quick update to add out to there. We've also received feedback from a lot of the schools that when we're doing these career outreach events with K through 12 schools and even the junior colleges and the universities, one of the tips we got from a professor was they want to hear it directly from the wastewater operators, from the engineers, from the actual professionals working in the field. So while I go out with my polo on and I'm representing IUA and trying to meet all the students, I'm usually bringing along someone with me now that works in our wastewater department or works in our engineering department because the students really want to hear from them. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Those of you that are doing those events, try to get your professionals in these events to talk to the students one-on-one directly. We got to do a large event with 1,100 students right before COVID hit. It was at the very beginning of March, and we brought like 5 operators with us and an engineer to talk to students, and they loved it. They loved being able to talk one-on-one with the professionals in the field. Through our education partnerships, we also have 2 paid partnerships where we make financial contributions to UCR and Cal Poly Pomona. This has allowed us to create an event with UCR that they're helping us to establish for February 2021, and it's going to be a water wastewater career fair. So UCR is going to be working with us so we can reach out to all of the other water wastewater agencies in our region, have them participate in the career fair and have multiple students attend, also have some of the sponsors that are normally part of these fairs in the water wastewater industry attend as well. So that's really exciting. So if you're in the Inland Empire region, Riverside, San Bernardino County, and you want to participate in this water wastewater career fair, please reach out to me, and I would love to have you participate with your organization. At this time, we're planning for a virtual event. We don't know what things will look like in February, but it's going to be exciting that we can actually have a industry career fair for water and wastewater. We also have a trades program that we've established for interns and volunteers. At this time, we're not offering it at the high school level. This is still for college students or folks who graduated from high school, as our volunteer program requires them to be over the age of 18. But it's really exciting. We actually won an award or received an award from WEEA for this program. And what it is it's designed to do or to create a wide range of career paths for students or interns and volunteers to learn about the different trades in our operations and maintenance department. So participants will have the opportunity to shadow and work with staff from our collections crew, our operations crew, mechanical and electrical and instrumentation. And based on their work experience or their work career desires, they're going to be put through the program to obtain certification. So whether they're interested in wastewater or if they're interested in electrical, we're going to help them obtain the certification with State Water Resources Control Board or the California Water Environment Association, and they'll have successfully completed the program once they obtain all the hours that they need for the certification and then become fully certified. So that's been a really exciting thing that we established, the program we established. We launched it on July 1st. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't been able to start applicants through the program because of the shadowing and working so closely with people, social distancing. So, but our program information is live. So go onto our website if you're interested in creating a volunteer or an internship program to allow people to obtain certification. Would love to talk to you more about it one-on-one if you have questions, but we were really excited to get the program documents launched on our website and advertised. And it's already getting a lot of buzz out there. I get students on my LinkedIn all the time. When are you going to let us apply for the trades program? So we're excited to launch it and then excited to accept applicants once we can. So those are just a couple of updates. With the CTE programs, we've been working with a number of school districts to try to establish a CTE pathway or program with their districts. I was recently participating in a CTE advisory board with our Fontana Unified School District, which is local in our service area. And one-on-one, I was able to talk to the director, and she provided an update that they are looking at adding a new CTE pathway, hopefully for fall 2021, to the Kaiser High School program on environmental resources and utility management. So they're looking forward to working with us more on this program and how we can pipeline students directly into the water industry. Kaiser High School has a large water management project, and they advocate the importance of environmental sustainability and renewable resources. And as for future pathway plans, they will want our assistance, creating that curriculum and identifying jobs with water resource management. So this is great progress with our career outreach initiative. So those are just a couple of quick updates, but please reach out to me if you have any questions, like on our trades program or the wastewater career fair that we're starting with UCR.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And I do have John's presentation, a single slide up. So John, if you're ready.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. And, it was about, I think, a year ago, the last, oh, I got to unmute myself. Did that work? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it was about a year ago. I went to the last in-person meeting of WEEA and met the group, and I was really overwhelmed with the amount of industry support around the water programs for the high schools and colleges. And I went back to Inland Empire. I was the regional director for energy construction and utilities then, posted out of the College of the Desert. And I went back and thought, I've really got to start pushing the water programs. And coincidentally, I ended up taking a job in Orange County. So I kind of came preloaded with a desire to work on the water pathways for the high schools and colleges. And I bumped into Ian Morgan shortly after coming to Orange County. We had a discussion. Next thing you knew, we put together a South OC water collaboration with our two colleges, Saddleback and Santiago College, that have water programs. And we started talking. I think our first meeting was in June, and then we had another one in August. And out of those conversations, we came up with an idea that we have to have a broader educational pathway for students to be interested in getting into water, or at least giving them the opportunity to get into water. And so we started talking about how we could put the two programs. We have one program at Santiago College, which is a water technician program. Stephen McLean, you all know Stephen, has, in his words, probably, I think he calls it the best program in the state, which I wouldn't argue. But he put together a fabulous program there, and he's been training water technicians that have been working in our region, getting jobs in our region for many years now. And so he was very excited about the opportunity to develop a cooperative certificate with Morgan Barrows over at Saddleback, who has a water resources management and conservation program. And through these discussions, we talked about broadening that access to students, not just CTE students, but also the academic side of the house, business students, accounting students, engineering students, and environmental science students, all those different areas that could work into a water job, whether it's on the business side or the technical side. So we got that going, and then Stephen decided that it was time for him to retire. So we took a little step back there, but thankfully we have Jeffrey Dennis at Santiago now, who is filling those gigantic shoes of Stephen, and he's in the meeting today. So I'd like to introduce him. Jeffrey, I'm glad you're here. Anyway, so those conversations started out kind of as a cooperative degree program where there would be both water resources and technicians in a degree program. But that got a little complex and complicated. And then we started talking more about a short-term certificate with existing courses that we already have that we could put together that would meld those two areas of water together, so you have a more rounded student. And I think Tiffany was one that mentioned she had a communications degree, and when she got into water, she didn't really know anything about water resources or management or those types of things, and she had to learn on the job, which took several years, if I remember her correctly. And so what if we had those communication students and those engineering students and other students getting that bit of education, that bit of knowledge on the resources side? Why is water important? Where does it come from? How do we move it? And then the technical side as well. If we put together a small degree that those students could take while they're doing their studies on the academic side, that could align them with water jobs. And so everyone agreed, and that's the work that we are starting. Unfortunately, we're starting over, kind of, since Stephen's going to be stepping out or stepping away, and Jeffrey's going to be stepping in. It hasn't stopped. It's just been paused primarily because of COVID-19. Many of our faculty are busy, or were busy, converting all of their courses to online, as you can imagine. So they weren't able to do much else. But I do have Stephen's commitment before he leaves that we're going to have that certificate figured out by the end of the semester. So that's really great news. Now, talking about that, the connection that we don't have in South Orange County is the connection with the high schools with a CTE pathway into water. So we have engineering pathways, we have some business pathways and those things, but there's no water courses involved in those. So one of the pushes that I'm spearheading is to get some dual enrollment courses, first of all, that can be both college credit and in the high schools. The foundational resources, water resources and conservation, and maybe some of the foundational ones on the technical side as well, to get those in there so that students can begin in that pathway. And maybe it's tied to the engineering, so they don't have to open up a whole new CTE pathway, although that would be my preference, as well as I'm sure the college's preferences, and maybe even the water industry's preference to have an actual water pathway. The difficulty there with the high schools is that they have to fill these classes. And if students don't see a clear connection to the pathway that they're whether that's a university pathway that they're on, if they don't see there's a connection there, they're not going to take the CTE pathway courses. So they'll have a hard time filling them. And if they don't see a way to fill them, they're just not going to develop them. So the obvious ones, engineering, are there. But once we expand the certificate and we show our administrative or our principals and the superintendents in the districts of the high schools, once we show them that there is a way for those students to get into water jobs, and the water jobs are in high demand, I think we'll have some success there. So that's what I'm working towards. I'm working with Brian Dozier over at VitalLink. They do all of the CTE pathways, advisory groups, and all of those things. We also have our college faculty going to those meetings. So we're going to join forces and try to make those connections so that we have solid pathways from high school to college for the water programs. Now, in addition to that, since Emily, I think, brought it up about liability and students, having a hard time getting internships because of liability or other work-based learning opportunities. I wasn't going to talk about this, but since it was brought up, we're working on a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with a national staffing agency who's very interested in helping us place interns, and not just interns, but also do job placements. And we're already working with them in that regard as far as solar technicians, control techs, and electricians, which all of those pathways, with maybe the exception of solar, are part of a water pathway. And what they do is they take our students, they hire them, and then they put them on these short-term internships. They carry the liability, and the employers can then bring them on, give them the internship, and not worry about it. And then eventually, they can also put them into long-term employment positions. So this is it's a pilot program that we're starting in OC and LAOC both. So I'm kind of excited about getting that developed. As soon as that MOU is signed, I will get back to everybody and let them know that the pilot has started, and we're going to start working with them. So we'll see how that turns out. But this is all kind of experimental since we're building this pathway. This even the certificate, the small certificate, is a little bit of an experiment. We think it's going to be successful in connecting the high schools and the colleges with water programs, and it remains to be seen, but that's what we're doing, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, John. We're bumping right up against high noon. So I just wanted to let everybody know who actually has to leave that we do have homework, and I do plan on sharing that with you and making that part of our event here today. But I do want to also ask if LA has a share out. Adrian or Walter, do you have someone from Los Angeles who's going to provide a regional share out, or if not, that's fine.
Brittany had taken the notes, but there was a lot of we had a really good discussion.
She put it in the chat.
That's perfect. We'll go ahead and skip on, and then for our next leadership roundtable, we'll identify those regional leads and ask that they give a brief update in our close. But just in the interest of time, knowing that other people have to go off to meetings, I'm going to let Adrian close with our homework.
Hey, everybody. Okay, this was a great meeting. I took a boatload of notes, but I think we're looking forward to a future meeting in January, and I'm really excited. I think it's going to continue to grow, but that means we have 3 months to really create, plan, and try to take advantage of some of the ideas that were generated here. one of the utilities of this meeting is to share best practices and brainstorm. And I think we've been able to do both. So as the slide suggests, let's continue these regional discussions that were started in the breakout rooms with the goal of setting some priorities and identifying low-hanging fruit that we can move forward on, even if we have budget constraints and even if there's COVID. Let's do what we can to set ourselves up for implementing something when the opportunity arises. So number one, let's continue to work with the leads and try to identify within your group someone who can kind of take charge, not necessarily in terms of doing the work, but making sure everybody stays organized, everybody has a regular meeting, everybody gets to share minutes from those meetings. So if you could take some time and come up with some regional leads that can help facilitate us and get us ready for our next meeting in 3 months. The second thing is a letter of intent. And this is an interesting idea, very similar to what Emily had mentioned with Bayworks, but let's think about committing ourselves formally to this effort. It doesn't have to be an MOU. It can start with a letter of intent, and it certainly should start with sponsorship of WEEA. But let's start discussing what that might look like, what your agency might be comfortable with committing to, and let's keep this planning process going. And the last thing is let's grow this network. Number 3. So let's continue this conversation and bring into the fold folks who could benefit or who could teach us some things. It was mentioned several times that we could really use the perspective of human resources. I know when we talk to our human resources team, they're very focused on the here and now, as they should be. There are a lot of different protocols for just getting the work done today safely in light of COVID. But I think it's our job to help them see that CTE is their long-term planning, even though there is an immediate need with the silver tsunami, that the plans that we put forth here for high school, they bear fruit 5, 6 years down the road. And in my case, 40 years down the road. So I think if we can, one, identify some regional leads so that we can keep the conversations going. If we can think about letters of intent, and those will probably funnel through WEEA, but let's start using those regional leads to talk about and guide those letters of intent. And let's expand the network. Let's bring a friend to the next meeting. And if we can do that, we'll be all set for January. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Adrian. Okay, so we're only 3 minutes behind, which isn't too bad considering the wealth of information that we were asked to consume today and process. It's going to take some time. I bet a week from now, you're still going to be thinking about this meeting and the things that you can take from it and the ways that we can grow and advance our career technical education programs as well as our education programs and bring high school students into the fold of our world. So thank you for everyone who's joined us today, those who have been here since the beginning and those who are joining us for MODOC's first WEEA meeting. Thank you to all of those who helped me co-host today. I couldn't have done it without you, with your guidance and leadership. So I certainly give a shout out to Adrian, Bill, Walter, and everyone who participated in the chat and the breakouts. Our next Leadership Roundtable number 7 will be January 19th. So save the date. We'll make sure to send out an appointment for that and a flyer for that so you can bring a friend, bring yourself and bring a friend. And then finally, I did want to give another shout out to our 2021 WEEA sponsors, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Molten-Miguel Water District, Water Replenishment District of Southern California, and California Environmental Education Foundation. Thank you all for joining us. Please let me know if you have any questions, tbaca@mwdoc.com. Thank you again and have a great day.